So back in 2017 and 2018, I took 6 of the top $99 baitcasters and I put them head to head against each other in a series of 5 cast battles to see which one of the reels would be the best caster as far as distance and overall casting range. And when it was all said and done, there was a clear winner, and that was Shimano's Casitas 150. It pretty much won all 5 cast battles, and most of the cast battles that it won, it was not even close. The dominance of the Casitas definitely put this reel in a much higher performance category compared to its rivals at the time. Now, I attribute the dominating win to the fact that Shimano gave the Casitas a significantly lighter spool than its rivals, and then they combined it with the super adjustable SPS Infinity brake system, which was the best braking system at the time in the $99 baitcaster class. And I made a pretty bold statement after all the tests were done, and I said that I thought that Shimano's Casitas would go down in history as probably the best $99 baitcaster ever when it came to casting performance. Now, the reason I said that is because if you take the spool of the Casitas and made it significantly lighter, then you'd be encroaching on the casting performance of your more expensive reels. So manufacturers generally don't want their budget workhorse reels to outperform their higher dollar reels. So that was the main reason why I said that. Now, apparently Quantum wasn't listening, because soon after that they came out with their stunning Accurist S3. Now, this Accurist S3 features an even lighter spool than even the mighty Casitas, and it went with externally adjustable centrifugal brakes as well. Now, of course, this means that we're going to have to put these two up against each other in a cast battle. Now, during my analysis, I did count 2 advantages apiece that each reel will have over the other, and to go over those advantages, we're gonna have to pull the scale out. Okay, so I got the scale out, and let's talk about the first advantage for the Accurist, and that's gonna be the spool bearings. Now, Quantum says that they gave the Accurist S3 what they call the PT bearings for the spool, which stands for performance tuned, while the Casitas has only the standard Shimano stainless steel bearings. So that's an on-paper advantage for the Accurist. Now let's talk about the one big advantage for the Casitas, and that's going to be the SPS Infinity brake system. Now, they're both centrifugal and they're both externally adjustable, but the fine-tuning and adjustability on the Casitas is much better. Now, the main adjustment comes inside in the form of these brake shoes that you can turn on and off, and then you can further fine-tune whatever brake shoes that are on even more with this external dial right here. Now, there are no clicks on the dial, so theoretically this is infinitely adjustable. So that's the one huge advantage for the Casitas. While the Accurist, if you take a look at the brakes, there are no internal adjustments you can do. All adjustments are done with this external dial, which I believe has either 13 or 14 total settings. So still very fine-tunable, but not nearly to the level of the Casitas. Okay, so let's talk about the advantages where we can see them on the scale. Okay, so the second advantage for the Casitas is going to be just the overall weight of the reels themselves. Alright, so the Casitas is noticeably lighter than the Quantum, and the Casitas weighs in at 6.8 ounces, while the Quantum, because it is made of aluminum, weighs in at 7.3 ounces, so half an ounce heavier. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but plain and simple, I can cast lighter reels harder and faster than heavier ones. Alright, so let's talk about the huge advantage for the Accurist. And of course, that means we're going to pull these spools out. Now once again, the Casitas had a big spool weight advantage over its rivals. And I think it was at least almost 2 grams lighter than its next rival. Now it's been a while since I've weighed a Casitas spool, so let me refresh my memory. And it weighs in at about 15.3 grams. But this Accurist blows it away with a spool weight of 13.16 or almost 13.2 grams. So you're looking at a 2 gram lighter spool for the Accurist, and that's including this spool bearing. Now since the spool bearing is not a part of the rotational mass, if you take that off, this spool weighs only about 11.5 grams. So that's a significant weight advantage for the Accurist. And I think that's mainly due to the fact that the spool shaft is aluminum on the Accurist while the Casitas has stainless steel. I think the aluminum may be higher grade as well. As you can see, the Accurist spool is a lot more ported, but you can definitely feel the difference between the two holding them, that this is significantly lighter. Now one thing I wanted to clarify is that the Accurist actually has a 34mm spool. Now during the tabletop analysis video, I guessed that the spool was probably 33mm, but it's actually 34. So that means that they are both equal in diameter. So both spools have a 34mm diameter, so no advantage for one over the other. Now the line capacity looks to be roughly the same as well. I think the Accurist may hold just a little bit more line. But yeah, that is a huge advantage, and that was the main reason why the Casitas, in my opinion, dominated all the other $99 reels. Okay, so I've decided I'm going to be casting the 1/4 ounce casting plug for this battle, and that's to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Now, the first bird, of course, is going to be to see which one of these reels cast this plug the farthest. But I also wanted to see how the Accurist numbers stack up to the current 1/4 ounce casting plug king, which is the $600 Shimano ANTARES A, which has pretty much the same spool weight as the Accurist. So I'm very eager to see how that plays out. And this is actually the first time that the Casitas is going to go up against another reel from another company having a much heavier spool. So the first time the Casitas is going to go into battle as the underdog. So I will see you guys out on the casting field. Okay guys, so we had a super close battle there, and before we go over the results and find out who the winner is, I'm going to go over the brake settings for each reel real quick. Now the Casitas, the best distances in practice were with the spool tension set to just eliminate the side-to-side movement, 2 internal brake arms on, and the external dial set to 1.5. Now with the Accurist, the best cast distances in practice were set with the spool tension set to just like Quantum's recommendation, to where you tighten it up and then you loosen it to where the plug hits the ground and there's little to no backlash. But what I also did was I loosened it up by 1 click on its spool tension dial, since it has a clicker, and that allowed me to go to whatever this setting is. And that's one thing about the Accurist, is that the clicks on the external brake dial don't match up exactly with these numbers or these dots. So I don't know if it's just my reel or if all of them are like that. But I did try to cast the Quantum with the spool tension set loose, and the distances were just a couple of foot shorter, but that also made the brakes make a weird sound towards the tail end of the cast, a lot like Shimano's old SBS Infinity, where you need to oil that brake pipe. So that makes me think that these brakes may need some oiling after some use, which is kind of strange since this is only the second time I've really casted this reel. Okay, so let's get to these results. And as you can see, I opted to do 7 casts this time instead of the usual 5, because I wanted to kind of even out any kind of extra long cast anomalies from each reel. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw up the numbers for each reel on the screen for you and let you guys try to figure out who won. Okay, so what I'm also going to do is I'm going to throw up the cast average for the 1/4 ounce casting plug king, the Shimano Antares A, over in the corner. And this is basically the number that these 2 reels have to beat in order to dethrone the Antares. And it comes as no surprise, neither of these reels came even close to that number. But of course that's a $600 top of the line Shimano reel, so no big surprise there. But let's get to the winner of this contest. Now, coming in second place is going to be the Shimano Casitas, taking its first ever loss to a reel of another brand with an average of 132.78 feet. Now, I was actually disappointed with that, and I remembered that this Casitas actually went through this test before, so I dug through my videos and looked at the cast average, and it was about the same. So I guess my expectations of the Casitas were a little bit too high. So that means the Quantum Accurist S3 takes the win, just barely, with 133.67 foot average. So a little bit less than a foot, but once again, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, winning's winning. And in the defense of the Accurist, it did hit more casts in the 130 foot plus range than the Casitas. So that's what afforded it its win. Now, I expected the Accurist to win, but I'm disappointed in the cast number. I thought that this Accurist would average at least 150 plus foot, if not 160 plus foot, because of the spool weight. So I wonder if the Accurist holds that much more line, where it kind of canceled out its huge spool weight advantage for this reel. So I have to test that theory, and I'm gonna pop the scale out. Okay, so I pulled the spools out and I went in and I took the bearing off of the Accurist spool, and I can tell you, just picking up these spools one after the other, that the Casitas spool feels a lot heavier. So we are looking at 25.6 grams for the Casitas spool when filled with lime, while the Accurist, while it's not completely full, you're looking at 20.4 grams. So the weight advantage for the Accurist actually grew because apparently it holds a little bit less line than the Casitas. So I have no idea why the Accurist underperformed versus my expectations, because I expect this thing to average at least 150 foot, if not 160 foot plus, with that 1/4 ounce casting plug. And the only thing I can think of is that when I cast them one after the other, the Casitas is a noticeably smoother caster, and I don't know if that really made the difference. Now, the brakes on the Casitas are superior. Now, while the Accurist does have pretty good externally adjustable centrifugal brakes, they're just not as refined or fine-tunable versus the SVS Infinity, which has the flying arm system. So that's the only thing I can think of that caused the Accurist to underperform. And also, you know, the overall tolerances and refinement on the Quantum were not as good as the Casitas, even though it felt more solid on the retrieve. Okay, so disappointing cast distances aside, the Quantum still beat the mighty Shimano Casitas. And keep in mind that the Casitas did start out as a $120 reel. Now, does this mean that the new Accurist S3 is the king of the current crop of $99 baitcasters? And that just remains to be seen. Now, of course, we have the SLX, the CG80, and we also have that new LEWS speed spool that I do plan on getting sometime soon. And then in 2020, we're going to have yet another big $100 baitcaster shootout. But for now, in my opinion, the Quantum would go into that battle as the favorite to win. Okay guys, thanks a lot.